By the way. It's a good time to stop. We'll call the meeting order at whatever time it is.
7:36.
And Rob, why don't you start us at the point since you.
I will, thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I like Father Chris Church at Stanley Stairs for a little while, don't you? Okay. Robin?
President Gales.
I'm here.
Secretary Suss.
Here.
Treasurer Hammond.
Mhm.
Trustee Simpson.
Here.
Trustee Allen.
Here.
With that, we have the election of officers. Does anyone want to change positions? Is everyone happy?
I think Luke would love to take over as treasurer.
Well, I don't think that's accurate. And I think, as was encouraged by me as a new member on the board, I think it's a good thing for a new member on the board to have. One might think. But I have a lot on my plate right now.
That's right, because all you gotta do is look at the thing and say, the report's in the book.
Numbers really aren't.
And I did everything.
This is being recorded. Don't tell all the secrets.
I did everything with John already by saying, John, we want your help.
Numbers really aren't my strength.
Yeah, exactly. No, I think we're fine. I'll keep it.
Motion for a slate, is that what?
Yep.
Who's making that one?
I will.
Okay. Mr. Troublemaker.
We have a second, anyone?
Randy.
Oh, I'm sorry, Randy. I'm like, apologize. All right, well,
Roll call.
yes, please.
President Gales.
Yes.
Secretary Suss.
Yeah.
Treasurer Hammond.
Reluctantly, yes.
Trustee Simpson.
Yes.
Trustee Allen.
Yes.
You couldn't say that yet fast enough, could you?
All right, I need a motion for the approval of the minutes, please.
All three of them?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Are you
Okay,
second?
that would be a second.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Yep.
Okay, great. We have a civilian here,
Welcome.
a volunteer civilian.
Right.
This is the time when we have an open discussion for public comment.
Is there anything you'd like to publicly comment?
If I could.
Please do.
Sure. I'm Jenny Fleming. I'm a Winfield resident and Winfield small business owner, resident for almost 25 years. So it's nice to meet some of you for the first time and see some of you again. And Luke invited me to the meeting, so thank you.
I'm sorry.
Thank you so far. I enjoy learning new things. So see what you have to say this evening. And thank you for your volunteer time on the board and for all of the great men and women that serve Winfield. Thank you.
Very kind, very nice, very kind, thank you. Reports? Treasurer?
Well,
Luke's
Luke's report is in the packet. Just one quick side note, this is the year end, so, we'll get a whole lot of information out of our friend over here in a minute, but, just so you know, you got that, and then we'll also hear from John during this as well, so. It's all yours, James.
All right. Let me share my screen and then we can walk through the year-end results, obviously ending April 30th, 2023. Okay, here we go. So we're going to start, as always, with some revenue highlights here. But let me bring this up so we can see it. Again, this is for all 12 months in the fiscal year. And we're at 100% through our budget year as well. So you can see we beat on the top line. We were 17% better than our revenue budget for the year. Received 100% of our property taxes, 2.7 million, both major installments from the county. Ambulance fees, that was an area we knew was going to be exceeding its budget, and we've made that change in next year's budget as well. 1.3 million there, so that was 86% better. PPRT, that's the business tax, a little smaller on the number. It's 54,000 that we collected. That's another adjustment that we've made in next year's budget to take that up. In terms of us seeing some more of that business revenue, we get about 8 times a year from the state. And then, of course, our grant revenue, that was the Central DuPage Hospital grant, 450,000 there. So again, as we look at these line by line, taxes in at 100% of the budget. up 1% over last year. Ambulance fees, 86% better than budget, up 48%. Replacement tax, you can see, we probably just budgeted too low here, but we have been seeing more in terms of collections from the state for the replacement tax or PPRT. So again, that's something we took up next year. Grants and donations at 100% and more investment income. Obviously, with John's team on board now and Sawyer Faldudo, we'll hopefully do better than this. Next year, as we started our migration over to our new Schwab accounts that John will invest for us, which we'll talk about later. Some miscellaneous here at about 54,000, and then our transfer to our capital fund a little bit more than what we had budgeted at 110%, but the same as what we did last year. So 4.8 million in total revenue. We budgeted 4.1, so 17% better, up 11% over the prior year. Look at the distribution. Taxes lead the way at 59%, ambulance fees 28%, that replacement tax about 1%. Grants and donations, again from the hospital there, mainly 10% of the revenue budget, and then 0.2 for investment, 1% for miscellaneous. For the month of April, pretty much on par with the prior month. We collected about 68,000, brought our total to the 1.3 million as discussed. For the year, we averaged about 109,000 a month. Last year we were at 73,000, so we beat there, and then again we averaged about 58,000 for the budget. So again, this is something that, considering the trend that we're seeing, we'll be able to take up next year. And again, that's just good call volume, good collections, the GMT program, all of those kind of coming together to increase the fees received. On the expenditure side, again, 100% of the year gone by, we were under budget, 6%, so we were at 94% of the total budget. Operationally in at 97%. We did have some line accounts that went over, some that went over, but again, in total, under budget for the year. We did make our $95,000 GEMT payment. Remember, we collect 100% and then pay back the state that 50%. This was on Q1 and Q2 of 2022. Comp and benefits, a little bit over here at 4%, about 2.3 million in total, and 5% of the salaries line alone over. But again, we made up for that in other areas: building and facilities at 82, equipment, vehicle maintenance at 74, training education at 53% of the budget. So again, as we look at these line by line, comp and benefits, that's our biggest line account. That was up 4%. Over the 2.9 million that we started with in the budget, and up about 7% over last year. So again, these are areas that we look to next year. Obviously, when we laid out the budget to increase. Firefighters pension fund at about 89%. That was down just slightly, 10% from last year. Legal and professional just up about $8,000 over what we had planned for, up about 41% over the prior year. Admin in at 75. And the rest of these categories, for the most part, as we kind of scroll down the list here, you can see under budget, a little bit more for liability or tort insurance, a little bit more for work comp insurance, and then a little bit for and fire. But again, typically that's under the Foreign Fire Board's control. But all in, again, 4.3 million. We budgeted 4.4, so we were at 97% and up 11% from last year. Again, a lot of inflationary costs built in there too, remember, in terms of increases year on year. Capital outlay, not a whole lot there, about 70,000 spent, or 31%, and then the other side of that transfer into the capital fund. Distribution-wise, or comp and benefits always makes up the biggest part of the pie here at about 70%. The pension about 8%, legal and professional 5%, admin 4%, building and facilities 2%, medical equipment, maintenance and operations about 6%. And then some smaller percentages until we get to liability or comp insurances. Those both make up about 1% of the operational budget. After 12 months, we eked out a small surplus, about 212,000. A majority of that's going to fall into the capital fund. We know we're going to be using some of that carryover for next year's budget, as we do have more capital that's needed. 4.1 million is where we started. So we ended with about 4.3 million in ending fund balance. And again, those targeted reserves that we're looking for, especially in the general fund, we're north of 6 months. That's a good place to be. And then we've got, about 1.8 million in the capital fund. Now, we know that we're in a land of rising costs, especially on the vehicle side. So again, while that's good progress, I think it's something we kind of have to continue that methodology to put money away when we can, just given the cost increases we're seeing, especially when it comes to vehicles and apparatus. About 3.1 million, and you can see the migration here as we're closed out in the equipment and capital projects fund at Grand Ridge. And again, that's been migrated now over to our Schwab custodian account, which John's going to invest on our behalf about 1.8 million. Again, mirroring pretty much what's in our capital fund. So that's a nice segregation now of those monies. As we know, we're not going to get paid probably till the end of this month. So what we're carrying in the money market and checking at Grand Ridge really has to take us to the next tax installment. Most of that's going to come in June. So again, that's why we have to reserve operational. And even though these look like big dollar amounts, we have to stretch these from tax payment to tax payment, especially on those operating funds. But that concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to take any questions from the board.
I think we're all good. Thank you. Thank you, James.
Very welcome.
John as well right now. Yep.
You want to hear from Don first?
So then we can have it all as one. Very good.
Thank you. Give everybody, we typically call a monthly report. We will email these out if you didn't start that already. James will continue to send those out our mutual relationship. And this will be a report that gives you a summary of the investment portfolio. And again, gives you kind of bullet point information versus a full-blown in-depth report. Let's go to page 3 of 10. And this is the note at the top there, the capital equipment fund. As mentioned earlier, there's about $631,000 in that account as of the close of business on May 15th. I ran this through today. Typically it would be as of month end, but since we just got started, I thought I'd give you information on that. So we're on page 3 of 10 in the Sawyer-Feld report. You get there. And how these generally operate is you've got a month to date, and then typically you will have a quarter to date and year to date type column, if you will, and then also a since inception report. And so let's look at the inception to date. The account, was opened on April 12th. Note beginning value, of course, was 0. We had contributions or additions in of $631,000. That was the transfer in of dollars to the Schwab account. There were no distributions. There was no capital appreciation as you would expect or wouldn't be, because again, we're investing in money market. And then we've got income after a couple of days of being in the Schwab account. The first interest payment hit. They usually pay right at the beginning, the middle of the month. That was $304. So our ending market value as of the other day was $631,446. I said the other day, I meant yesterday. And the investment gain was $304. Now, another interest payment did hit overnight last night into today, and I'll show you that value in a minute. But we ran this report that does have a 1-day lag on it. Projected income, Grayson mentioned earlier about the expected income that you'll have on your portfolio. Middle of the page, projected income, based on the money market yield as we sit here today. Expected annual income based on the market value is $29,362. So I don't remember, it was less than $10,000 that we saw a minute ago. Just on this bucket of money, you're looking at about $30,000 almost on an annual basis, provided the balance stays the same. Then the bottom, it shows projected income and maturities. Those numbers are the same because again, we're owning money market funds, so there's no maturity date for money market fund. So flip to the next page. This will be a nice running total of performance history, if you will. And note that you've got the start value as of the quarter. You got inflows showing that's the deposit, outflows, ending value, and then net investment gain. So as quarters tick off, if you will, you'll see quarter by quarter start to add to this, so we can kind of see where the gains occurred. And then also have a nice timeline of when inflows and outflows occurred as well. It's oftentimes helpful. Hey, when did we pull out that $500,000 for that purpose? People look at it pretty easily. Look to the next page. We've got holdings, a short list. It's the Schwab Government Money Market Fund. You see the ticker symbol there, which is the industry standard for identifying a security, the value, the current yield on the money market. When we first started talking about this, Chief, a month or two ago, interest rate was 4.1, 4.2, I think. We're at 4.7% as we sit here today on liquid cash. It's pretty amazing relative to where we were 16 months ago in terms of interest rates. So again, spitting out about $29,000 of income. And then you see the transactions. The list is short. This report is always in reverse chronological order. So on April 13th, you see the deposit. The 17th, you see that first deposit of the income on the money market fund, $304. Fast forward to the next page, page 7, and this is the construction fund. Current value, $1,185,000. Same process. If you go over to the right-hand side, you see the investment. The gain on that was $143 during this short window of time. And note the expected projected income based on value is $55,149. Same obviously for projected income maturities and no maturities finished. You look at the next page, performance history, again, same information, different format, which will be helpful as we continue to track growth over time. You see the holdings again, the money market position, which 9, and then you see the transaction ledger. And note that there were a couple of deposits that hit $1 million and $185,000. I see the term cash transfer. That was the transfer over into the Schwab money market fund, if you will. And then the income was invested. Income was received $143 there. Look to the next page, and it does not have a page number in the same sequence. So I'm looking now at a landscape type page that at the top has the name of the name of the account and the account number, a Schwab badge in the left-hand corner. And you'll note that it's a more recent transaction ledger and that it shows the interest payment that occurred on May 15th. So you see that quantity column there, $2,182 of interest was received yesterday and swept into the account this morning, but it doesn't show on that prior report until tomorrow if everybody sees that. So again, another $2,182 came up overnight. Go to the next page, then with that interest payment, the value and the right below the Schwab badge there is $633,628 as of this afternoon. And that's the capital and equipment fund. The next page, again, another landscape page. You see on May 15th at the bottom of the page there, another interest payment came in of $4,099.79. And if you flip one page, you've got the total value then of $1,190,000 again as of today. And then the last page that I included is the representative investment yield. So every day, folks are putting together a table for me that updates what the current yield is based on market conditions, etc. And you can see that 4.65, which is the 4.7 money market we talked about a minute ago. Then if you look at the treasury and CD columns, which is where we'll focus, you see the maturities, 3-month, 6-month, 9-month, 12-month type securities, and you see the interest rates that are available if we were to put money in those things today, if you will. So there's a little bit of gain to be made in the event that there's dollars that we know won't be needed for any period of time, where we could increase yield another, call it 0.5%. On the assets that we have. That's something that we can discuss a little bit, or I can work with James to come up with a proposal for next month, whatever's convenient for you guys. And then remember, we also have the operating account that was set up as well, but not yet funded. The purpose of the operating account, based on our prior conversations with Chief and Robin and James, was when the dollars come in from tax money that you're going to need over the course of months, rather than leaving it sit in the bank earning 0.25%. We put it in an operating account at Schwab, and then we can do it however you like, on demand, once a month to set a dollar amount, etc. It gets moved back over to your checking account then to facilitate your bills and things like that. We have one fund that, again, at the beginning of the month, I think we talked about this, they send us an email that says we think we're going to need $350,000, send it to us by the first of the month, and they use that throughout the month. If that runs a little bit short, they can always ask for more, maybe a little bit extra, the next month they just ask for less. And in some cases, when they get to the meeting, they approve all the bills, they sign the checks, they send me an email saying, hey, we signed checks for $300,000 tonight, move the money over, and then we'll send the checks out. Whatever works for you guys, you can take care of it. It's all hands-on, personal touch, that kind of thing. So we can do it whatever methods comfortable for the board.
We kind of talked about having 2 months to start with, and then when you use a month, replenish that month, so you always have a little reserve in there, so that way if you haven't, it's an extra expenditure that you were planning on. You're always replacing what has been used, but you always need.
So that concludes kind of the formal comments. I'd be glad to answer any questions before we dive into anything.
Rob, in the treasurer's report, I think there were still 2 CDs that haven't matured yet, correct? Will those then one of them matures this month.
Yes.
Will those be then transferred as well over?
Yeah, the goal is to have those all gone, not do any additional after that. So it's just once they mature. And that's, if you notice,
So like
the
the
past
one,
few reports, we had a couple that were sitting there that were still listed, but they had already matured completely. And it was just waiting to get these accounts opened up so that it could all get moved over.
is it cheaper to pay the penalty on the one that expires in November and move it over with the interest? Is there enough time for the interest rates to pay? Or is it better just with the amount of time that's left to leave it where it's at?
Just depends on the structure of the penalty and what the current interest rate is. I don't know, did we look at that in terms of?
We haven't talked about that yet.
You know, again, if they're gonna penalize you even for all the interest, but you're gonna make it up by August, based on the fact that the interest rates are 4.7% on the money market, it certainly may make sense to do that. So, if there's a way to double check with the bank, what the penalty would be for withdrawal, and then I can do the very simple math to say 4.7% times the period that's less than a year, and make sure that that makes sense. And if it makes sense, we'll do it. If not, we'll do where it is. Yeah.
Sounds good.
If you wanna make that as a suggestion for.
I just want to point out, he said he wasn't a numbers guy, and look what he comes with,
I can see.
right?
I didn't do anything with numbers. I just,
Well, you did use the calendar.
He's quietly under. he's
Those are
quietly-
numbers.
Quietly under.
I tried to give it to you. You know,
I'm
you're
trying to be engaged.
They didn't elect you to be engaged. Oh, wait.
The heck's wrong with
Thank you.
One other point, you know, I mentioned on this table that we've got different types of securities that are allowed under the Public Funds Investment Act. CDs that are listed there, the rates on CDs, remember, those are institutional or traded marketable CDs. So in the event that you've got the construction fund or something, one of the equipment fund, whatever the case may be, and suddenly there's an unexpected need for money. Unlike the CD at the bank, where there may be a penalty, or likely will be a penalty if you have to cash it in early. These are marketable, meaning we can sell them. So any interest you burn to that point, you're going to get, whether it's accrued or already
You
received.
just don't get the full maturity of it.
You might,
Potentially.
you might, potentially, is that's the risk. So for example, just a simple example, when we buy it, we spend $100,000 and the interest rate is 5.15%. Well, the going rate for interest is now 6% because rates have gone up a little bit. Who's gonna wanna pay me $100,000 for that CD? They're gonna give me $98,000 or whatever the appropriate yield give up is. Vice versa, if interest rates fall, that CD is not worth $100,000 in the market, it's actually gonna be worth 101, 102,000, so you actually may make a little money and you earn interest along the way, so that's your risk relative to losing interest, if you follow me. But with good cash planning, you've got James who does a wonderful job with where you're at, where you're going to be. You know, we haven't seen that in 30 years of doing this, where somebody's had to liquidate early. The only situation would be if you had a sudden need for a piece of equipment or something really expensive that you didn't expect, or you hadn't planned properly, but most of the time, as Robin mentioned, you have a little bit of cushion anyway, you're not gonna run into that situation. So that would be the difference between just going to the local bank, getting the toaster and then buying this versus this.
Told me about the toaster.
Right.
It's not in this.
Do I have a motion?
Second.
Roll call?
President Kelly.
Yes.
Secretary Sales.
Yes.
Treasurer Hannah.
Yep.
Trustee Allen.
Yes.
Trustee Sanders.
Yes.
So one quick point, if you don't mind. So right now, we do have everything in money market, we have not lengthened out or gone into any of the other types of securities. You want to see how this pans out with the CD money that might be coming over, and then you've got, you know, within a month, right, you'll have tax money start to roll in. That we
Yes.
might then at the next meeting say, okay, taxes are here. Why don't we look at taking cash that we have, the money market, investing it, and also accounting for the operating funds and a schedule of how much you want to come back and when and things like that. That might be a good topic for the next meeting, and if just rolling further, it's kind of a step-by-step type thing. Initially, we got the 4.7 versus almost nothing, and then we'll expand on that from here.
Love it.
Right,
Great
so no
idea.
change- No change right now, but we'll talk about it next.
I can see why Rob should be fresher.
I'm just, I'm just going with whatever he says.
Thanks, George.
Chief, the floor is yours for a short period of time.
Come on, any other quick.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Anybody else need another cookie before we get going?
Okay, thanks. Only at 1 point in 62. Alliance rules, so,
for anyone in the public. Any, so we're part of the West Suburban Fire Rescue Alliance. It's a group of 6 agencies: West Chicago, Winfield, Wheaton, Carroll Stream, Bloomingdale, and Roselle, who all operationally act as one department. We work together, we train together, we have shared standard operating guidelines and all the other stuff. So twice a month, we do multi-company training. So companies from every agency get together and we do these large-scale training classes like they would do at the University of Illinois or regional or even national, which is a huge advantage to being part of this group. So we usually do one special operations, either something technical rescue, hazardous materials, or water rescue. The first week of the month and the third week of the month, this week, we would do multi-company, either fire or EMS training. This month was supposed to be technical rescue, it was supposed to be trench operations. And when we do those kinds of trainings, as the board knows, we do live trainings. And this month, the trench, with all of the rain we got the week of training, was
a water rescue.
was desperately unsafe, so we canceled training and did in-house training amongst the agencies. And actually, several of the groups got together informally at West Chicago's Crossroad facility to do some trench operation work, but we didn't do the actual live trench shoring and rescues and stuff because of the instability of the soil of the training process. So that's what we did instead. Little impromptu training on trench instead of the whole full-blown operation. This month, today, tomorrow, and next, we're doing multi-company high-rise training. So as I've gone through with the board previously, high-rise training, and we have a couple now in town. It's incredibly different from a single family, a garage fire, multi-family, even commercial, small commercial occupancy. High-rise is its own unique animal. It typically takes about a half a dozen crews just to get the first hose line in place to start fighting a fire. It's incredibly arduous operation, incredibly nuanced, and getting all the different crews to work together to make all of that stuff happen, to say nothing of all of the other things like the impact of the wind on a fire condition at an elevated floor. There's a lot of things that go into it. Command-wise, there's a lot of things that go into it. You know, we have it, for those that have watched on the news over the years, and high-rise fires tend to be have a considerable amount of casualties, and part of that goes back to people trying to escape down the hallway that you're down the stairwell that you're trying to get up, and organizing things for escape stairwells and attack stairwells and all of that stuff. So all of these companies working together to make all of that happen is something why we train on this a couple of times a year, because it's incredibly detailed and arduous work. And that is taking place at Indian Lakes. Bloomingdale is kind enough to host, and Indian Lakes is kind enough to allow us to use the facility for all those trucks and all of our mess that we make. And the first one was today, and tomorrow the next. And I will extend the offer, as I always do, if anyone wishes to join me. You're welcome to go see. It's a remarkable thing to watch all these crews and how they work together to make all of this stuff happen. Recent incidents of note. So I will reiterate again that I don't, you know, we run hundreds of calls a month. We're thousands of calls a year. And I typically won't mention EMS calls out of sensitivity for patients, but just calls where if there was, we were obstructing traffic for a couple hours, if we had a whole neighborhood up in arms because we had 20 trucks parked there and that kind of thing. So those kinds of calls are typically the ones I'll mention. So recent incidents over the last month, on April 19th, we had a vehicle fire in a garage, and rather a structure fire up in Klein Creek. We were assisted by Carroll Stream and Wheaton on that fire. On April 30th, our tender went and assisted Warrenville with a fire on Dulles. On May 8th, we had a garage fire on Harrison Avenue here. We were assisted by Wheaton, West Chicago, and Carroll Stream. And on the 9th, our tender went to Elburn for a structure fire.
I was gonna say, so that going all the way.
Yeah.
Tender there.
Yeah, so as you recall,
Barn,
tenders are a rare commodity anymore. We still have West Chicago, Bloomingdale, just, you know, again, out of our partner agencies, all have considerable areas that aren't supported by fire hydrants and water supply. systems. And I've gone through with the board that with time, more and more agencies are getting out of the tender business. Recently, a year and a half ago, maybe, St. Charles got out of the business because their whole jurisdiction was by hydrants. They didn't need tankers anymore. So they're becoming more and more infrequent in terms of an apparatus. So consequently, when any of us has a big fire, and this particular one was a substantial fire, you're having to draw assets from farther and farther away. So in our case, what we will do is we will dispatch as soon as if we get dispatched for a structure fire in an unhydrated area in our district or West Chicago, again, our partner agencies, you will automatically roll 3 to 4 if they're available. Because every tender company is a jump company. So they jump with another unit. So if that unit's out, the tender's unavailable. So 3 to 4 will usually get dispatched for any of our agencies. And then immediately, as soon as we have any kind of a confirmation of a working incident, we will call for up to 6 more, depending on the conditions we encounter, because they're going to be coming a long way to get there. So again, the fire service being the fire service and us being us, it's a very forward-leaning, proactive kind of an approach to these kinds of things. Going back to the fire in Elburn, it was a big fire in a big place, and they were drawing assets from way far away, and we were there for quite a long period of time. And that's why that kind of thing happens, and it will happen more frequently as more agencies get out of the tender business. Service anniversaries for this month, both Brian Burt and Jeff Fester celebrated their 9-year anniversary with Fire District on May 5th. In terms of the fleet update, the new fire engine is still expected for delivery date of late August this year. The frame, as I reported last month, the frame, body, and cab are all under construction. They're going to be bringing them together in one of their factories to make the final assembly, and that should begin in a couple of weeks. New ambulance, no updates on that. The last report I got was it was still expected for delivery in late 2024. Unfortunately, it takes build times for ambulances and fire apparatus are being counted in years at this point. So we have to. It's a difficult time. It never used to be the case. You could usually get an ambulance in about 6 months. You could get a fire apparatus in less than a year, and both of those are. That's not the way it is anymore. So, build times, I am told by some of the manufacturer reps are starting to look like they're going to start creeping down, but we are where we are right now. The air cascade, as I reported last month, was installed, up and operational. There was a couple of mechanical issues with it. Service came out, repaired it. It's working 100%. We've been using it a lot because we've been going through a lot of air battles between the structure fires and the training. Safer grant, obviously that's all working. I've been working with James, very kind of them to be giving us guidance because safer grants are incredibly difficult to navigate. And our 3 new candidates hired under the safer grant, Bob Wangels on shift today on red shift, Carl Nicklick on black, and Nick Nichols on gold. They have started, they went through the orientation and they're working. So again, it goes back to what we talked about during the referendum. Plan was the plan, adding that first person, facilities, so we're doing exactly what we had set out to do. And thank you to the organization for holding to it. And again, I owe a debt of gratitude both to Representatives Caston and Underwood's offices for helping us out tremendously with making that grant happen. There were only a handful less than 6 awarded to the entire state of Illinois. So their support paid dividends for us.
And with the rising costs of everything else going on, the federal grant to cover that position had been budgeted as part of the referendum, but the growing costs have been, are going to allow that extra revenue to go to covering the extra station costs. Yeah, news station, the news, right? The extra funds.
Yeah. Yeah. So the timing of that of the grant award couldn't have been better for our organization and more importantly our community. Phone system upgrade is completed, up and operational. We've almost got it figured out.
We still hang up on people once in a while.
So if we don't take it
Sorry,
personally.
it's me, let me try again.
It might be personal, but Robin's gonna go with that excuse.
That's right.
I can't seem to get through.
Alrighty. Alrighty.
Simple layers.
So ultimately, the phone system was a cost saver for the district, so that was a good thing. and a necessary thing because the auto attendant feature, is helping a lot of our
I'm like
families.
having the phone raised, I go, oh my goodness. I don't have those bots calling me 40 times a day for nobody to be.
Downstairs locker room project is almost complete, so we'll have, full facilities for the female members of our organization, which we have several. So no more flip thing upstairs necessarily, so that's a good thing, and it'll get us through until we have proper facilities for everyone.
For the benefit of the public, why don't you describe what the flip thing was?
Okay, so this station was built as a volunteer fire barn, predating anyone being here. The upstairs was for the party, the downstairs was where they parked the garage, so everything you see, all the walls, all the offices, all the living areas, everything was built afterwards. So everything's been retrofitted to work over the years. The bathroom upstairs is very small and
The one that.
one
Yeah, then
bathroom
bathroom.
in the living quarters for the 6 people that are on duty a day. And it's a very small bathroom, it's not really big enough to handle half of that. And we didn't have cohabitational facilities, we didn't have multiple different men's and women's or any of that other stuff. So the workaround was a thumb lock and a flip sign, men's, women's, on the door, which generally kind of worked. So what we did is we took some space in the basement where there was a men's and a women's washroom and an old kitchen from when they used to cook for good old days or that kind of, or events, community events. And we repurposed some of that room to make a female locker room and full shower bathroom area to accommodate our female members rather than the makeshift way that we were doing. And again, it's nonetheless still less than ideal. However, it's better than what we had and it'll get us through until we get a facility up.
And a lot of it was done by staff who did it on shift.
So if anyone's displeased with
They
the
were
drywall
on
work,
shift where they were working.
Right, yeah.
Right.
yeah. Any complaints about the drywall work? I don't wanna hear. And Dave Pimento was over and above everyone else, was absolutely a game changer, the work, the effort, and especially in light of all of the hours I'm putting in anyway. He in particular deserves a lot of extra credit because he was really putting in the hours, making all of that happen. So he deserves a ton of credit for that. Architect report, so we have not had a meeting since they presented at the board meeting. And those meetings are going to be resuming with the meeting tomorrow morning at 0900 here at Station 31 in the conference table. And the last item I have is Irma, our insurance provider, workers' compensation insurance provider. We have been in the workers' compensation program we're entering into our 3rd year. The workers' compensation focus group. So because of some law, now we're a small entity, we only have approximately 20 employees. We're a fire district, so unlike a municipality that has a lot of people, office people, our claims to compensation or claims to contribution ratio is high. And fire districts in general are problematic, and us as the small one. Any lost time injury was particularly impactful in our case. We had several a few years ago. 2017, 18, and 19, we had several significant lost time injuries. And that put us into this workers' compensation focus group. It's a 3 to 5 year program. We're entering year 3. We actually thought we were going to get out of it this year, or have complete the program because we have made such, and this is according to Irma, we've made such excellent and positive progress in our operation that we had done everything we needed to do to graduate from that program. Unfortunately, our claims to contribution ratio was still too high, so they keep us in for probably 1 more year as some of those some of those earlier claims are moving off of that 5 year But we are in the program, had a meeting with them today about it. We were approved to stay in the program for, like I said, an additional year. They were complimentary, it was very complimentary, but I suppose to some of the other member agencies that were in the program, with the work we did, that compliments go to staff for making that happen. And again, the only reason we're still in the program at this point is to start from kind of fiduciary issue, which and Arky's already. That's all I have to report.
Thanks for keeping it short, hence the cookies.
There's still a lot of stuff going for that.
There's a lot of stuff going on. I try to make light of what you do. You do a tremendous job. And I'm very proud to have it. It's not only chief, but it's. Thank you very much. So, do you have anything to say?
You know, obviously you have some things later on the agenda we'll talk about, but really closed session. We need to talk in closed session.
Okay, all right, not a problem. We have, any old business to bring up? No? Need a motion to, pass the consent agenda?
Well, second.
All in favor? Consent agenda.
Aye.
Okay, so moved.
Just a side note,
I was waiting for you.
we're at a relatively speaking slow month, 184 calls. That's a bit slower than we've seen, although we're still over what we were at last year at this time.
Yeah,
So-
we've done it, so most agencies every few years will have a down year where they're down a couple hundred calls or a couple of percentage points call wise. We have not had one of those in many years.
Yeah.
This is probably as close as we have been, is in my recollection, and that is we are not terribly ahead of last year, and busier is bad.
Yeah.
Busier is always bad.
At least this slows down the pace of being a 13 months or 13-month year, so. And only 12. Thank you.
Thank you. New business, we have an acknowledgement receipt of the official canvas and vote from April 4th, 2023.
Congratulations, you three.
You ran hard, you out there pounding on doors.
It's the only time I've ever ran in my life.
You did, you
You're the top vote getter.
Look at that.
I think he got more votes than I did.
only for the 2-year term.
but he's a 2-year
Yeah. Yeah, you guys couldn't even break 1,000, the two of you. Jeez.
Slackers.
Knock on enough doors.
That's right. That's right. Well, you know, it was the signs that you put out that I think really, you know, that's really what turned the tide for you guys.
I think the sign he puts
When did you see one?
This is just jealousy talking coming from me, don't worry.
We need to discuss and take action on this decennial committee ordinance thing.
So this is kind of what we talked about in the
2-year,
past few months,
2 6 years.
is the General Assembly passed the Decennial Efficiency Committee Act. So what you have to do is by June 10th, which obviously this is your last meeting before that date, form a committee that's made up of the Board of Trustees, the chief, and at least 2 members of the public. And what you have to do is within an 18-month span, have 3 meetings, and you come up with a report on your efficiency. And as I think I've indicated to you, for my purposes, it's not as hard as it is going to be for some other taxing bodies. But you'll talk about ways that you can potentially be more efficient. You can, I mean, you have so many things you can talk about. It really is endless, quite honestly. But are you being efficient? Are there ways you can improve your efficiency? For my purposes as a fire district, what I look at is whether or not are the purchases that you're making serving that purpose of making you efficient or making you a better organization. You know, so you're talking, you guys are talking about a tender, and that helps you serve your district potentially, depending on what your needs are. For some districts, they don't necessarily need a tender. Or if you're looking at ambulances, is that going to help you become more efficient in providing the services that you provide to your citizens or who you have? So there's a lot of ways you do it. How is your spending? Like as a fire district, I'm not as concerned about it, quite honestly, as I am some of my other types of districts I represent. Because clearly if someone's house is on fire, when they call 911, they're calling you. They're not calling me. They're not calling Ghostbusters. They're not calling me. If you probably 70% of your calls are EMS calls. So when someone has a medical emergency at home, and I say that because most of the districts, that's how it is, 70 to 80% of your calls are EMS calls. They're gonna call you, and you're gonna get there in a fast and efficient manner that is probably better than if it was someone else doing it. So I don't think there's any doubt that your efficiency is going to be there. But remember, I think I told you guys, and if I haven't, Illinois and Pennsylvania have the most governmental entities in the country, those two states. I think Pennsylvania has us edged out, but literally it changes day by day. I actually think this statute was more to address in generally townships, but but it's essentially applying to everyone except for the like city of Chicago, the municipalities, and just a few other exceptions. But for your purposes, you have to do it. You have that on adoption for tonight, so if we do it, then we file the ordinance with the county. And they'll have it. There's no efficiency committee police, quite honestly. But we still would advise you to comply with the statute.
Do they need to select their people besides the board, the other two people tonight when they?
Yes, I would prefer when you do it tonight. In the ordinance, I think that Megan drafted out, she even had potential meeting dates. But quite frankly, you can select the meeting dates later. Now, it's important to note that those meetings are subject to the open meeting act. So if you do that meeting, you're gonna have an agenda. Most of our places we're recommending either you do it right before your board meeting, because a quorum is gonna be there, or during as part of the meeting, even though you would keep separate minutes for the efficiency committee in there, or right after the meeting. Now, here's the truthfulness of it. Let's say you have the 5 board members, the chief, and let's say John and Jenny are the 2 citizens. I know John doesn't live here. I live in town, but I'm not gonna be on the efficiency committee.
You don't have to. It has to be 2 residents, but then there can be others.
Attorney won't be on it.
You are allowed.
So that essentially means you have a board of 8, right? A committee of 8. Well, if 5 were here, that's a quorum. So in theory, if you had all 5 board members here, even not the chief, if these 2 weren't here, you could still do the meeting. So it's a little bit of a quirky thing, but that's how it works because you're going by the Open Meetings Act.
And technically, the general public representatives have to go through OMA training as well?
They should.
Okay.
Here's the irony of it. Once you have your 3 meetings and you do your report,
You're done.
You're done for 10 years. So, like for example, I was at Huntley this morning. They're gonna do their meetings June, July, August. So, and they're like, we're just gonna get it done, we'll have a report done, and we're done for 10 years. And like, oh, I could tell like the person that they joined, like, well, you have 90 days to do your OMA training. Yeah, 90 days, they're gonna be done. So you should, yes. If you don't, I don't have any teeth to be like, well, especially since you'll be done.
Sounds like a plan.
I don't know if you guys have thought, I think we talked about this last month, I thought we did.
We did.
Okay,
Very late.
so you guys,
I don't-
kind of need to.
I don't know if, as far as the 2 residents, I do have a resident that said she would be willing to serve in that position.
That's why you did president.
But we have a president already shackled to the chair.
Are you under duress?
No, don't answer that. Just.
Right, yeah, no,
You thought that was ankle jewelry. No.
She was planning on being here, but
Well, you can certainly nominate her.
no, I'm considering now.
Okay.
Okay, so first of all, could I have one amendment to make to the ordinance as written, if that's okay?
Okay.
Or a correction, not an
All right.
amendment,
Okay,
maybe
let
a
me see,
correction.
yeah, 'cause I know Megan did them, so I don't know tell me what the correction is and we'll talk
In
about it.
section 2,
Uh-huh.
the end of the description of section 2, it has 2023 listed twice.
Oh, okay, yep.
They want you to really make sure you're
Right.
okay, it's 2023.
I'm not a numbers person, but that doesn't look right.
Right, yep.
Okay,
So
so as long as we can
Yep.
clean that up. I move that we adopt ordinance 2023-350.
We
Okay,
cannot yet
but you
until we
don't
get.
have, I need your committee, I need your two citizens.
Oh, it has to be before.
Yeah, because it's included in the.
It's
included in the,
okay.
Yeah.
Jenny, what do you think?
Do I get to sit up here?
No.
During the meeting.
You can stand right here. We'll put you right here with the cookies. You get cookies when you come. Chief, make sure those cookies don't have any.
Yes, sir.
We have no budget.
Sure we do.
It will not be efficient.
Fleming, Fleming.
The name must be down for her.
Jenny is IT.
With an IE.
Mhm.
Good correction.
Such good cookies.
Fleming, 2 limits or 1?
Just a minute, you're written down now.
It's
Yeah.
different than this.
Now you don't get to say yes.
IENG.
The key is that you didn't say no.
Yeah, Fleming, like.
You may not have said yes, but you didn't say no.
That's what it's named after this.
That's how. That's how we got named for it, you know.
Oh, Jenny with an IE. I thought she said Fleming with an IE. I'm like, that's not how it's.
It's the way the Welsh spell.
Justice.
And George was,
Like our meeting dates,
Yeah, you don't have to select the meeting dates right now. I know it's part of the ordinance, but that can change because it's subject to the OMA. I'm not as concerned
The
about that.
chair can call those meetings or set
Correct.
those meetings, right?
Yeah, I'm not as concerned about the meeting dates. When Megan did the ordinance, because I had Megan do all of, I think Megan came to a meeting you guys met, or Megan Lamb, did she come one time? I had Megan do all of the ordinance for the districts that I represent, just because of consistency there. But she wanted to include it just, because some places already had it in mind, but for my purposes, the committee is what needs to be formed by June the 10th. The meeting dates, that's fluid because, you know, we could say, oh, it's gonna be.
I don't know
June,
where I'm
July.
gonna be in 18 months.
Well, right, we
Yeah.
could say June, July, August, but we don't know if something comes up, so that part I'm not as concerned.
Well, we can set the meetings. June, July, August, you know,
I'm fine with that. 100%.
so, Robin?
Well, wait a minute, do you want your committee
So
members?
it's the,
Right,
it's the,
yeah, they may
it
not.
would be the third Tuesday of June in July.
Or do you wanna wait?
Or do you wanna do it on a Wednesday?
Whoa, whoa, whoa.
Let me
Like
make a suggestion.
like 2 o'clock.
Let me make a suggestion because you're, like, so a lot of places there, a lot of the places that are doing June, July, August, they're like using 2 commissioners or 2 people who are familiar with all of the operations. If you're selecting people who are not familiar with your operations, you may not want to do June, July, August.
I don't think we'll have enough time before those meetings to,
Right.
at least not for the first meeting. I think we're gonna need to plan more time for the first meeting.
Well, and you
To
may
get
want to do
started.
the first meeting is just an introduction.
That's what I actually think June for the first meeting makes sense.
Yes.
To
But
say,
then-
hey, here's what they are.
Right, but then I
Make a
would tell
plan.
you
Correct.
that you probably don't want to do July, August, because they're just gonna, no offense, Jenny. She's gonna get a lot of information probably that first meeting, maybe, maybe not, but there's gonna, and hearing that, she'll like say, or the same with your selection, or the board's other selection. They may have some information, so they want to call the chief. They may have these information, it may not be, for your purposes, it may not actually be as efficient to do June, July, August, because the learning curve of what you do for those new members is not going to be as small as it is, or non-existent as it is. Huntley, they took 2 or 3 commissioners. Actually, they named all 3 commissioners, is what they did. They just put the 3 commissioners on there, and those people, they do their hiring. So they know all of it, and they're all former, 1 or 2 of them are former trustees.
By the way, Joe just gave us one of the efficiencies that we can put down for the next time around for 10 years from now. Hire commissioners.
Yeah, not everyone wants to do that. Those are your commissioners. But, so you may, for your purposes, the June, July, August may not work as well, just because there may be a learning curve.
Well, then let's get together in June and decide what's.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Chief, are you the one, can you put together just some background information for the 2 members of the public?
Yes, sir. I think I need to know this.
That just so that way they have, kind of the, the gist of what we're doing.
Who the agency is, what kind of workload we do, and.
Yeah.
Yeah, the good thing, probably some of the stuff that you did out for the referendum has that
Exactly.
information.
Exactly what I was saying.
Fire trustee and president.
Mhm.
Do we want to?
Thank you,
have-
by the way.
We were in your driveway.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Yeah.
And thanks
So
for
I feel like I
that.
have a general
Well, that's good.
idea of what's going on. That's all general.
He's got a better idea than we do.
That's right. See, there's my hands up here. Where's the joystick? Where's the front of the plane? We want to make a motion then?
I move to adopt ordinance 2023-350.
Mhm.
Is this a roll call?
Yes, please.
President Carroll,
Yes.
Secretary Seth.
Yes.
Treasurer Gannon.
Yes.
Trustee Sessions. Trustee Allen.
Yes.
What gave away was this yeas and nays thing. Didn't. Phil, Luke, thank you for doing your due diligence and taking the extra step and getting a couple of volunteers. I appreciate it.
And thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Discuss and take action on salary ordinance, 2023-351. Who wants to open that up?
That's up to you guys. If you can talk about it in closed session, or if you're gonna approve it and you just do a motion. It's up to you guys. I don't know where.
We've all read it?
Get a find it here.
Barring any conversation, I will make the motion. If there is no conversation we had, I was fine with what it said.
I'm fine with where it's at also. It was very,
Oh, here it is, yeah.
in the folder. It got
I had a
stuck
question
together.
about the language, at the beginning. It asked the question, concerning the members of the fire district who are not members of the collective bargaining unit. Is an employee, is a firefighter, paramedic able to opt out of the union membership? Would they be excluded from the CBA?
No.
No.
So they can't, there's a yes and a no.
Okay.
Well, none of your part-timers are part of the collective bargaining.
Right, I knew that.
Part-timers are separate. The collective bargaining agreement is only the full-timers. There was a case that came, the Janus decision does allow someone to opt out. This is a US Supreme Court case. So someone in the union could opt out. That being said, the salaries that you have in the collective bargaining agreement would apply to them. The key is though they wouldn't have to pay the union dues and they may not have the union protection in other areas.
But they would
generally
still be
speaking-
subject to the salary tables
Correct.
of the negotiation.
Correct.
That was, I just wanted to make sure that if they chose that path, it wouldn't push them into this.
Correct.
Okay,
That is
I
correct.
just wanted to make sure that
And
was,
the ordinance actually only considers those ranks that are not part of the collective bargaining agreement anyway. So they would not fall within this because I think it says chief, deputy chief, administrative assistant, part-time firefighters. So they're, like, this wouldn't apply to them because the categories specified in the ordinance are not what they are anyway.
okay. And then the last question I had was, it was implied, but it didn't specifically say, all of, on page 2, it has an annual salary for chief, deputy, administrative assistant, and I'm guessing per hour rate, but it doesn't specify per hour.
Oh, I
It's
see what you're saying,
implied.
for the part-time
For the
firefighter.
part-time firefighter, paramedics,
Yeah,
it's implied that it's per hour, but it doesn't specify.
yeah. I mean, that's up to you guys. If you guys, I don't have a problem if you wanna put per hour.
If the part-timers aren't smart enough to figure that out, we don't want.
I mean,
Yeah.
But if someone challenges
$20
$20 a year,
I'm sure it has, but it's the first time I've seen it.
I didn't draft it, so, but I'm okay. If you wanna add per hour there, that's fine.
That's an easy.
I mean, it's
If
just,
we
a-
change it, we sign it on a different day.
Right.
Because it's on the last page of the signature.
As long as you're comfortable and say,
yeah,
I don't have a problem with it.
well, you gotta understand, the only other thing it's saying is we're paying them $20 for a year's worth of work. So in the end,
We are win-win
I
situation.
think we're okay on.
I'm just trying to read. Okay.
That one, I think we're okay.
I'm okay as is.
I'm
then.
okay either way.
I'm okay. Great.
I will then make the motion to approve, with no amendments then. Ordinance number, salary ordinance number 351, 2023-351.
Okay, we have a motion, we need a roll call?
President Callis.
Yes.
Secretary.
Yes.
Trustee Zane.
Yep.
Trustee Sessions. Trustee Allen.
Yes.
I did not see a surplus list.
There was none.
Okay, so we don't have to do that. I need a motion to pay the bills, please.
So moved.
Second.
Roll
And
call.
that bill total, just so we're on the same page, is $131,560.06.
Yes.
What is
President
it?
Callis.
Yes,
What's the facility lease in Newcomb?
The second facility that they have, is they outgrew their first one, so they just.
So it's just the pass along cost of the rent.
So, if I may, some years ago, Ducom used to be, housed in what had been previously the Office of Emergency Management Bomb Shelter on the county complex. They moved to a built facility in Glendale Heights, Wall Street, over by Army Trail and.
Gary. No, Schmally.
Schmally.
Gary and Schmally. Or, Army Trail and Schmally, yeah.
And they fortunately quickly outgrew that facility and then relocated back to the county complex, actually within our jurisdiction in what used to be the youth home on the county complex. So there was a massive construction project undertaken to turn that former youth detention facility into, part of it is Ducom, part of it is Office of Homeland Emergency Management, and part of it is for the ETSB, the county ETSB. And for the Ducom section of that, there was obviously bonds issued to pay for the construction, and that goes back to the revenue. And it's based on your shares of Ducom, because it is a governmental agreement kind of thing where it's share based.
So it's divided by shares. That was, I was wondering how the math came up. Thank you. That was my only question.
good question.
And you were in the process of calling the roll, I think. I think you had said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before you so rudely
President
interrupted.
Callis.
Yes,
Secretary Sutton.
Yes.
Treasurer Hammond.
Yep.
Trustee Allen.
Yes.
Trustee Simpson.
I believe we are going to move into executive session.
Yep.
Is that how you like to
Yeah,
do it?
discussing, employment compensation benefits of specific performance of specific employees of the district pursuant to section 2C1 of the Illinois.
That's the one. Now make the motion.
I make the motion.
So we there.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved.
All right, well, thank you. We'll get you something,
Thank you.
then we'll go from there. Good luck, Chief and Robin.